What's up, guys? It's MB Boxing, and today I'm going to be predicting the outcome of Jamel Herring versus Shakur Stevenson, and this is going to be a 12-rounder for the WBO Super-Featherweight World Championship, and this fight is going to be Saturday, October 23rd, from the State Farm Arena in Atlanta, Georgia, and this fight is going to be broadcasted on ESPN, ESPN Plus, or in the ESPN app. And to get into both fighters' resumes, Jamel Herring, fighting out of the United States, holds a record of 23 wins, 2 defeats with the 11 wins coming by way of knockout. He's currently ranked number 2 by BoxRec in the Super Featherweight division, and he's also the current WBO Super Featherweight World Champion. And to first of all list his 2 losses, he has a knockout loss to Denis Shavikov and a unanimous decision defeat to Ladarius Miller. And now to list some of his best victories, he has a unanimous decision win over Masayuki Ito, a unanimous decision victory over Lamont Roach, a disqualification win over Jonathan Okendo, and he's coming off a career-defining 6-round knockout victory over Carl Frampton. And that's again his opponent's resume. Shakur Stevenson, also fighting out of the United States, holds a record of 16 wins and no defeats with 8 wins coming by way of knockout. He's currently ranked number 5 by BoxRec in the Super Featherweight division. He's also the current interim WBO Super Featherweight World Champion, as well as the former WBO Featherweight World Champion. And now to list some of his best victories, he has a unanimous decision win over Christopher Diaz, a unanimous decision victory over Joet Gonzalez, a unanimous decision win over Tokakon Clary, and he's coming off a wide unanimous decision victory over Jeremiah Nakatia. And in my opinion, this fight is going to sway in favor of the younger and overhyped, in my opinion, Shakur Stevenson. Although Shakur Stevenson, from what we've seen, he's very well skilled, great defense, great counterpuncher, but he hasn't fought that big name yet, and Jamel Herring is that name. So if he wins this fight, I mean, he's arguably top 2 in the Super Featherweight division, and he'll most likely have a title unification with the other champion, Oscar Valdez, who holds the WBC title. I mean, there's also Kid Galahad and Lee Wood, but yeah, I mean, it's really just between these 3 fighters, Jamel Herring, Shakur Stevenson, and Oscar Valdez, that could really possibly fight in the near future, considering they're all affiliated with Top Rank. So, yeah, I'd be very excited to see the winner fight Oscar Valdez. But first with this fight, I just think Shakur Stevenson, based on his resume, I mean, he does get a little too much hype in my opinion, but I mean, his skills are there from what we've seen so far, so I wonder how he will adapt to fighting another guy who's likes to fight on the outside, likes to be the one sort of countering and landing the better shots and outboxing his opponents, because Jamel Herring is definitely not a fighter that likes to come forward like Shakur Stevenson likes to fight. Shakur Stevenson likes to fight fighters that come forward so he could be the one boxing, so he could be the one countering and dictating the pace. But Jamel Herring, we saw in his last fight against Carl Frampton, where he was just able to just box, counter, and score 2 knockdowns and ultimately stop Carl Frampton, who was the shorter man. He was just able to pick him apart from the outside and just dominate and got a pretty easy knockout victory. Shakur Stevenson in this fight, I don't think that he will be the one coming forward at all. You might see him just have little bursts of action where he goes to the body, to the head, then back to a more defensive style, but Jamel Herring will most likely be the one pressing the action, in my opinion. I mean, we might see parts where Jamel Herring's kind of fed up with just chasing Stevenson around a bit, and who knows, it could be a stalemate, because both fighters, as I mentioned before, like to be the ones fighting on the outside, but Herring, I would presume he'd be the one in this one to come forward a bit and be the one really pressing the action. But Stevenson, I mean, he'll most likely not get hit too much. Same with Herring. Herring might get caught cold on some counters. I don't think any fighter will go down necessarily. I mean, I thought that going into the Frampton Herring fight, I thought there was no chance Herring could knock down or stop Frampton, but look what happened. I mean, he just absolutely dominated him with his boxing skill and counter ability. But yeah, I'm very intrigued and interested to see how Stevenson will do against another boxer, as I mentioned before. And comment down below how you think this fight is going to go down, how each fighter is going to fight, whether Stevenson will get the job done or Herring, or just who's going to be the aggressor, because I'm very interested to see opinions on that, because from what I've seen so far, I mean, it seems like many people are agreeing with me that Herring will probably be the one more coming forward, fighting it more mid-range, as opposed to Stevenson being the one countering from the outside. And yeah, as I mentioned earlier in this breakdown, that the winner will get a huge opportunity most likely against Oscar Valdez, and I'm all for that. And most likely the winner of this fight could beat Oscar Valdez. Either man, even Herring or Stevenson. Most likely either man could probably beat Valdez, since he's coming off that shaky performance against Robson Conceição. But how this fight's going to go down, in my opinion, I think the first half will be very, very slow and not really eventful, because both of these fighters, as I mentioned many times in this video, they both like to be the ones countering and boxing, and I think both fighters are going to feel each other out for the first half, and then Stevenson will really start to run away with the fight. I think the first half could be really close. I mean, it could be 48-47 after 5. Maybe like a 58-56 in favor of Stevenson after 6, somewhere around there, like really, really close scoring, maybe 57-57. It could be really, really close after 6 rounds, because both fighters are really just going to be filling each other out. You might see rounds where both fighters barely do anything. You might see a couple rounds where Stevenson and Herring only land some jabs as the punches landed. And I don't think it will be a too high punch count fight, even for punches thrown necessarily, because both these fighters' styles don't really generate that much. And especially in Stevenson's last fight, he did not really impress me that much, I'm going to be honest, at all. He was fighting a fighter who, in Jeremiah Nakatia, who didn't really have too much experience at a top tier level. But Stevenson, although he was able to beat him easy, and I believe he also scored a knockdown, I mean, he just didn't impress me that much. He fought very boring, very cautiously. And I know that there's a difference between the sweet science, and I know all Shakur Stevenson's fans were saying that was the sweet science, but it really wasn't. I mean, he was just standing there, not moving around, not countering. He was just, or he obviously was countering, but he was just standing there waiting the whole time on the ropes. And I mean, it just wasn't an eventful fight at all, although Shakur Stevenson did get a couple wobbles on Nakatia and scored a knockdown, but it just was not a good fight in any sense. But for Jamel Herring, as I mentioned before, he got that win over Carl Frampton, but that was an impressive victory. I was actually picking Frampton to win that fight. I believe I did mention that earlier, but I mean, yeah, he really did impress me, Jamel Herring did, in his last fight, but Shakur did not. But still, I think Shakur is going to fight at a higher level here. And more onto how the second half of the fight will go. I think that Jamel Herring will start to get a bit more fed up with Shakur fighting on the outside, and I think Shakur will stay composed and calm, and I think he will jab, he'll counter, he'll land a lot of sidestep, slip uppercuts. I think Shakur might get caught a couple times, and maybe going in like with a jab to the body with like an uppercut from Herring, and we saw those uppercuts from Herring working so well against Carl Frampton, who was the smaller man. I believe Herring does have a 3-inch height advantage and maybe a 4-inch reach advantage over Shakur Stevenson. I think Herring's like 5'10" with a 72-inch reach. Shakur's like got a 68-inch reach, and he's like 5'7", somewhere around there. And Shakur is used to fighting guys somewhere around his height. But obviously against Nakatia was a bigger man, but just his skill level was not up to par with even anyone in the top 10. And that's for Jeremiah Nakatia. But yeah, more into the second half of the fight. It's just going to be Shakur still boxing on the outside. He'll land some nice counters on Herring, but I don't think Herring will do enough or necessarily win enough rounds to especially get a judge's decision. And I think the fight will be fairly close in the scorecards because of the earlier rounds, and I think Herring could win 1 or 2 of the mid to late rounds, but not that much. But early on, Herring will make it really, really close, as I mentioned before. So the scorecards could be pretty close, somewhere around like a 115-113, 116-112. But I do have a feeling that the judges are barely going to give Herring any of the close rounds at all, although he is the champion and his name is first on the poster. But still, Top Rank have been hyping Shakur Stevenson up so much in the past couple years that he's the next Mayweather and whatnot, but we'll see in the next coming years. But still, I think Shakur Stevenson should get the job done, winning this fight by unanimous decision. And as I mentioned before, the scorecard should be around like 116-112 twice, 115-113, but maybe the judges might not really give Herring any of those close rounds and give him the respect he deserves being the champion here. But yeah, they might have it like a 117, 111, or 118, 110. And that's the sad part of this fight because I don't really see the judges probably giving Herring many of the closer rounds here. And I think if Herring has to beat Shakur, he's really going to have to beat him because Shakur has been hyped up so much, as I mentioned many times here, and he's really just the A side based on revenue and whatnot. So yeah, I still think Shakur will get the job done nonetheless, but I just think Herring has so much stacked against him that I even if it's really, really close and Herring, you could make a case for him winning, I still think they'll just give it to Shakur anyways. So overall, I believe that Shakur Stevenson will defeat Jamel Herring by unanimous decision. And once again, I think the scorecards could be around like 116 to 112 twice and 115 to 113. And yeah, that's really it. I'm MB Boxing. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys later.